Hi, my friend. I hope you're doing well and having a great start to the summer. If you're in the Northeast, we've had an interesting mix of really hot weather or a lot of rain or a little bit of both. But I'm just coming off of back-to-back race weekends, and fortunately, I had really decent weather for all the races that I did. I did three races over the 2 weekends. So excited about that, and excited that one of them was indoors because it would have been a little too hot to run outdoors. So I wanted to come on and just share a little bit about the recent races that I've run, but in particular, I started to think about like why am I running Spartan DEKA races? I started thinking about like I have a lot of races this year. It's very demanding, and there a big part of that are the hybrid races or the DEKA races that I've been running. So I started to reflect on why I'm doing this, which I'm excited to do and I'm happy to do. But as I was thinking about it, I wanted to share this with you as to why is it beneficial for maybe someone like me who runs road races as my primary sport to pick up an alternate sport like a hybrid race like DEKA. And I've talked about this maybe a couple of times on the show, and we had a guest on to talk about like how to manage having different sports. And I want to talk about like why pick a specific one like a hybrid race like DEKA. So I'll just talk a little bit about kind of my experience for the past couple of weekends, and then get into the top 5 reasons why I enjoy running DEKA races. So it started with a couple weekends ago. It was Father's Day weekend. Coach Kevin at Underdog Fitness hosted his DEKA races. It was a DEKA Strong and DEKA Mile, which I typically go just to volunteer, and knowing that I had a Father's Day 5 miler race the following day, I wasn't really signed up to do either a strong or a mile that particular weekend. But fun surprise, my running mate Mickey had come up and surprised me. He came up to Connecticut to run the DEKA race at Underdog Fitness, and he is my teammate for the team's races that we're doing this year, which I'll talk a little bit about. So since he came up, it was a really nice opportunity for us to run the race together. Since we can't train together, we're obviously we don't live in the same area, so it was a nice way to do that. So we ran the DEKA Mile just as kind of a trial run to see what is it like to run a team's race with each other, and it was such a fun experience because when you run by yourself, you're doing all the runs, you're doing all the stations, you're doing all the burpees. And when you have teams, you could really break up the 10 stations and the runs to a certain extent. It depends on if for the mile or the fit. And that allows you to do what you're really good at and allows your teammate to do what they're really good at. And it just allows you to kind of give each other a little bit of break and go hard on whatever is the station or the run. Get yourself a break, tag your teammate, and they come in for the next station or run. So I really have been enjoying the team's race, probably a little bit more than the individual, but it was a lot of fun to see Mickey. And, just as a shout out to him, he has an incredible journey, incredible transformation that we talked about in the show. Episode 54, you could take the first step in your transformation. And he talked about how he lost 50 pounds through running, and he got into obstacle course races. And that's actually how I met him, was at a Spartan race a few years ago, and was fortunate enough to have him on the show, have him as a friend and a running mate in the DEKA races. So check it out, episode 54, Inspired to Run podcast. So we did the race, and it was super helpful because then we're able to see, based on what our plan was, did it work? And some things we adjusted mid-race, which worked out really well, and that helped us adjust our plan for the following weekend, which I'll talk about in a moment. So really excited about that race. We put in a really good time, learned how to work with each other during the race, and learn what we need to work on for future races. So I'll come back to the next race that we did together, but first I'll talk about the Father's Day race, which was the very next day, and that was the 5 miler. And I was pretty hyped about this one because I put on a really good time last year, and I've been training for a year, and I really felt like I could improve that time, and I've seen some pretty good improvements in some other races earlier this year. So, I set out to run that race. I think I prepared well, I hydrated well, so I was ready to go, and it's a really nice course. It's such a beautiful course. It's just as the start of summer, good weather. You're running by the beach for some parts of the course. It's a lot of great energy, and the organizers put on a really fun and exciting race. So I did the race. I feel good about being in control in terms of my breathing and my form and my pace throughout the race. But unfortunately, I didn't hit my mark. I did probably about a minute slower than I did last year, which is quite unfortunate. But I'm still happy about the race. I still feel like I ran a good race. It's still a really good time overall. It's just not, the PR that I was looking for, which I know, you're not going to hit that every single time. So I just know, just need to keep working at it and know what I need to keep doing, and just excited about doing that race. So those are the two races I did back to back. That was Father's Day weekend. And then the following weekend, I flew to Charlotte for another DEKA race. And this one is the DEKA Fit. So if you're not familiar with DEKA, it is 10 stations, and you're doing various things through these stations. You're doing the row, you're doing burpees, you're doing a bike, you're doing farmer carries. And for the strong, you're just doing the stations. For the DEKA mile, you're doing the stations plus a 1 mile run total through the race. So you run increments through in between each station. And then the DEKA Fit, very similar. You're running 5 kilometers throughout the entire race. So you do those increments in between the stations. And a couple of the stations are just a little bit different than the strong and the mile. So Mickey and I ran the Fit together. So it was our second team's race together, but the first time we did the Fit. And I'm really proud of how we did. We didn't get exactly where we wanted to be in terms of place, but in terms of target time, we were super close, and we did really well. And there were a couple of times that each of us kind of needed to adjust during the race, and there was obviously things that we can improve. And we kind of reviewed how we did during the race in each of the stations, but really excited about how we worked together, how we performed, and just the energy behind doing the best we could in that race. And we still have time. And that's the exciting thing, is we have a couple more races that are going to come up before World Championships, and we know what we need to do between now and then to get to World Championships at the end of the year. So that's just a little bit about, back-to-back race weekends, and now it's about strength work that I need to do, some conditioning. Got a little bit of pain in my knee that I need to take care of, and I need to do a bit of speed work, and there's a few things that I need to work on my side to do my part for us to be successful in our next race. So that's about it for, the recent races that I've done. And I'll talk a little bit about why did I get into DEKA and why I think it's great for, a road runner or road racer like me, like myself, to do something like DEKA. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into it, and then I'll give you the 5 things that I think at least helped me. And I'm sure there's a lot of other reasons why you'd want to get into a hybrid race as a runner. So why I got into it was really through my coach. So my coach became an affiliate for DEKA during COVID. And I wasn't running a lot of races at that time. I wasn't doing a lot of training. I was running outdoors, and remember, gyms were closed and there wasn't much you could do. So I was running outdoors, but I wasn't doing a lot of training per se. It was a lot of body weight stuff, which is good, and a lot of running. And DEKA was a way for me to kind of ease my way back into races, and, kind of in a low key way. So, a lot of the races are hosted by affiliates, which are local gyms. There are not a lot of people at the gyms kind of doing the races. So it was kind of a nice way to kind of ease back in before getting into big crowds. And everybody knows what was kind of going on during that time. So that's how I got into it. And I started to reflect on, well, what are the reasons why I think it helps me or could help a runner? So here are some of the reasons that I came up with. So the first one is around cross training. So for it's always recommended that you have an option for cross training, no matter what sport you have. And for running, I don't swim, I don't cycle. There's a lot of things that I don't do, and I feel like DEKA is a nice way to get in that get in something for cross training, and it helps you kind of incorporate different aspects of fitness like strength and agility and endurance, and it really complements what I do as a runner. And of course I do strength training. So of course I do that. Admittedly, not as much as I should be, but yes, I do incorporate that. But this is a different type of cross training that I incorporate that I think helps me overall. So that's number one, is if you don't have another option for cross training that you like, training for hybrid racing, like with DEKA, I think is a good option for you. Second is, full body fitness. So this is an opportunity for me to focus on, other things than just running. So I just kind of mentioned this around strength and flexibility and endurance. And it's full body. So you're not only running, you're doing the ski, you're doing the burpees, you're doing the row. So if you've seen someone do it, if you've done it yourself, you know that engages, many parts of your body. So for me, that's a really nice way of kind of mixing it up and having a better kind of holistic, kind of training plan. And my hope is, for the first two that I've mentioned, is that it helps me with my road races. My hope is by doing the work that I'm doing to train for DEKA, to run the DEKA races, ultimately helps me when I get back on the road for 5Ks, 4 miles, 5 miles, half marathon, and then eventually my first full marathon, which is my goal this year. The next one is not necessarily unique to DEKA, but I think it challenges you in a unique way, and that's around mental toughness. So, of course, you have to have mental toughness if you're running any kind of race, right? Whether it's a 1 mile race that you're running really hard, or a 5K race, or maybe some of the longer distance races where you just have to kind of keep going. You have that same challenge when you're running hybrid races, especially DEKA races, because you may feel really good when you're starting, and remember you have to do 10 stations, and then sometimes you run in between each, depending on which ones you do, and you may feel really good about it. So you may come out of the gate really hot, just like a race, like a 5K race. You may come out of the gate really hot, and then you get into the first station, you do your lunges, you come out of your lunges, you get into the next station. By the time you get to the fifth station or the sixth station, it is absolutely mind over matter. 100% mind over matter. So, you really start to feel it depending on how you pace yourself. So having that mental toughness or developing that is really, really helpful. And for me, I don't consider myself necessarily a sprinter or really kind of high speed runner. So for me, doing this high intensity work and then having the mental toughness to push through it, again, I'm hoping translates well when I get into my road races to kind of keep moving and perform in those races. The other item here, number 4 on my list, is it gives you a variety in training. So if you're running or you're doing strength training, I have my routine that I'm very comfortable with, and I don't like to really do anything else. I like to just do my routine, whether it's running or whether it's strength training. And by doing DEKA, this really forces me to do what my coach tells me to do. And there's different types of training that I need to do. So that's super helpful because it helps like mentally, just kind of gives you a break from the monotony of what you're doing, but also for your body, right? And you're not doing the same thing over and over again and doing something that's repetitive, which is not always great for your body. So this is something that's super helpful, is that kind of have that, variety. And then the last point here is not necessarily unique to hybrid racing and is not necessarily saying that I don't get this through road races, but it's community. And I would say for me that it feels like I've been able to expand my network and who I know and the community that I know through hybrid racing. So not everybody who runs in hybrid races, even though there's running, will run road races. So, and of course, vice versa. So it's really cool to have this community of racers who do road races, but it's also cool to meet, a big community as well who may only do hybrid races. And that's been super fun for me. A lot of folks have come on the show over the last couple of years, and a lot of that is really due to me getting into hybrid races and kind of being in that environment. So really, I feel fortunate that I've been able to meet a lot of folks through the road races, but also through hybrid races. So those are the top 5 reasons why, I enjoy running DEKA and why I would encourage you to consider getting into hybrid races yourself. So hopefully this was helpful for you. Send a message and let me know if you enjoyed this episode and if this was helpful. If you have any questions about my experience with DEKA and hybrid races and how that kind of works with my road races, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. But thanks for tuning in today. I really appreciate you being here. And with that, thanks again. Have a great day.